We finally got an official sequel to the dumpster fire that was The Wand of Gamelon, in which the titular Princess Zelda sets out to rescue Link and the king from the clutches of the evil Ganon. And although I never played the 3 CDI Zeldas, I was simply too young when they came out, and after learning about them a few years later I never considered them worth playing anyway, I think it's common knowledge that these games are considered among the worst pieces of media ever created, but at least we got some peak meme material out of their now legendary cutscenes.
I may be hideous, but after a year of being frozen, you will beg to join me.
While Echoes of Wisdom share some similarities with The Wand of Gamelon or Zelda's Adventure for sure, this here traditional top-down Zelda experience developed by Grezzo is a drastically different game this time around, so let's all collectively thank the goddesses for that and dive right into it.
We are off!
Just a quick heads up here, I will show footage from the later stages of the game in this review, so if you haven't completed it yet, maybe don't watch the video or come back later after you've beaten the game. If you don't care about spoilers at all, then carry on please. Also, I'm no Hyrule historian or anything like that, so I don't know when exactly Echoes of Wisdom takes place in the official timeline yet. Now, I'm sure you're all familiar with the franchise already, but here's a quick summary about the general setting anyway. Like almost all the other games in the franchise, Echoes of Wisdom takes place in the land and kingdom of Hyrule, which is home to a pointy-eared people called Hylians, of course. But there are other nations and species to be encountered here as well, like the sturdy Gorons, who live on Eldin Mountain and eat rocks, the fish-like semi-aquatic Zora, who call Hyrule's rivers and seas their home, the exclusively female warrior tribe of the Gerudo Desert, and the cunning, jungle-dwelling Deku, for example. While I'm sure that it's a peaceful place most of the time, Hyrule gets threatened frequently by evil forces that seek to control a divine power known as the Triforce, which consists of 3 pieces of power that need to be found and put together again for it to work, in that it grants the wish of anyone who touches it. In most Zelda titles, 2 of the 3 pieces are in possession of the green-clad sword fighter Link and Princess Zelda respectively, with the 3rd already acquired by the evil demon king Ganon. And most of the time, it's unsurprisingly him who invades this land with the help of his numerous minions to seek the remaining pieces, and it's seemingly no different this time around. So, during one of his rescue missions to save Zelda from the clutches of Ganon, Link falls into some sort of rift into another dimension called the Still World, where everything that's not a monster seems to be frozen in time and floats in some kind of fragmented void. These rifts open up all over Hyrule shortly after, threatening every living and non-living thing to fall into it, unable to get out of it again without the help of a miracle. This includes not only Link and the general population, but Zelda's father, the King of Hyrule, and his most trusted advisors General Right and Minister Left too. Upon Zelda's return to the castle, she actually gets framed by imposters of the king and his advisors for causing these rifts, promptly sentencing her to jail with a subsequent execution. Unfortunately for them, however, Zelda manages to escape the castle's dungeon with the help of an entity called Tri, and her newly found ability to clone certain items and enemies with the power of the Tri Rod, which she got from Tri earlier. And now it's Zelda's turn to go after Link, trying to close all the rifts and saving the world in the process, all the while uncovering a much greater evil that seems to be at work here. Also, shoutouts to Impa, she's a real MVP for karate chopping those guards into oblivion. The ability to make stuff appear out of thin air, creating echoes as the game calls them, is actually the main gameplay mechanic here, so let's talk about all of it next. Actually, let's get the game's performance out of the way first, because I think this is Echoes of Wisdom's biggest issue, and I mean we're talking about playing on the Switch here. First of all, the game looks similar to the 2019 remake of Link's Awakening, which of course was also developed by Grezzo, and while it looked gorgeous and is in my opinion a great remake of one of the best Zelda titles overall, It is sadly also plagued by performance issues. Those issues didn't quite disappear in Echoes, but let me elaborate. So in the overworld area, which is the largest in the game naturally, you will fluctuate somewhere between 30 to 60 FPS. It's kinda all over the place, but it never dipped below 30 for me. Whereas it's a pretty much constant solid 60 FPS in dungeons, indoors and in the still world too, I think. I played the entirety of the game in docked mode, but it's more or less the same in handheld. I have some footage of me playing the game in handheld mode here. Not sure if you can notice the game's performance at all, but yeah, it's kind of a weird frame rate affair here, and I wonder why Grezzo and Nintendo didn't settle for a solid 30 in the overworld and 60 FPS everywhere else at least. Digital Foundry has a more in-depth look about the game's performance if you're into that kind of stuff, and I highly recommend checking out their video because they can actually explain what's going on here in much greater detail. While it is disappointing that Echoes of Wisdom doesn't run as smoothly as it should or could, it was kinda expected in my opinion. Makes you wish for a Switch too, that's for sure. I mean, if you're having fun with the game and are invested in its story and gameplay mechanics, you'll never give a huge damn about the performance anyway. But yeah, I get it. It's a full price game, so it also should run like one. And who knows, maybe we'll get a performance patch or something in the future. Yeah, I doubt it. In the end though, Echoes of Wisdom runs well enough and has definitely more going for it than its pure performance. So let's go over the actual gameplay section of this review now. So, as I already mentioned, creating echoes of certain items and enemies is the main hook of this game. You will come across a whole bunch of stuff and monsters you can create echoes from. There are 127 echoes in the game to be exact, and it's very fun to run around trying to eventually collect them all and to put them to good use, so to speak, because you actually need at least some of them to solve the game's numerous puzzles and to combat your foes. As fun as it is to amass a whole collection, I have to say though that scrolling through hundreds of different echoes gets tedious quickly, and it made me kinda sad that you can't favorite your most beloved echoes at all. Sure, there's an option to sort them in a specific order or show the last used echoes, but that doesn't really do it if you're looking for a specific one. Also, it would have been nice if they added some sort of category system, but sadly there isn't anything like that in the game. So prepare to scroll through a whole lot of furniture and monsters after collecting a bunch of them. But back to the topic of actually using all of these different echoes, you can get really creative here, especially when it comes to the puzzles, because most of the time there isn't really a definitive way to solve them. It's more like a sandbox for you to experiment in, and the whole game felt like that, which I really liked, of course. That being said though, I have to note that bats are really OP in Echoes of Wisdom. You can solve almost every riddle with a quick and clever deployment of a bat. Seriously, this game should have been dubbed Bats of Wisdom or something. You can even heal yourself with them if you lie down for a quick nap. But, you know, you can just decide to not use them or whatever to come up with a more creative solution. There's a limit on how many echoes you can have on the field, which is indicated by a tail of triangles floating behind Tri's back, and every single echo you find comes with a cost. If you used up all of Tri's power and want to cast another echo, the oldest one you put out simply vanishes. Rule of thumb is, the stronger the monster you want to deploy, the higher its cost. This applies to non-enemy echoes too, of course. So you can't have a whole army of Darknuts running behind you, unfortunately, but Tri will get stronger during your adventure, mostly by closing the various rifts you come across, in getting more power for you to use or reducing the cost of some of these echoes. All in all, the echo system is an awesome mechanic that pushes you to think creatively and outside the box most of the time. Another thing Tri is capable of is the ability to bind yourself to certain objects or enemies. You can use this ability to move your echoes or some otherwise static objects in the game world, to solve puzzles and to wiggle some buried treasure chests out of the ground, for example. And there are some bosses and enemies in the game that have parts on them you can bind yourself onto. Now, Zelda may not be a fighter, but she certainly can transform into one. Besides deploying echoes and binding yourself to stuff, The Swordfighter form is another tool you can use to get through the game. With this, you can actually attack your enemies directly, and as you can probably imagine, this ability is especially effective against bosses. You not only get a sword, you will unlock bombs and arrows for the Swordfighter form at some point too, so you can fully cosplay as Link as much as your heart desires. Well, or until your energy runs out, because being in Swordfighter form drains your energy resources pretty quickly, and that's actually a good thing, because otherwise it would completely defeat the purpose of the awesome echo mechanic. But you can search and collect these so-called might crystals you can find all over Hyrule and the Still World to upgrade anything that's remotely related to the Swordfighter, including the duration at Blueberry's hut. That's the guy with the glasses here. There are 150 might crystals to collect in Echoes of Wisdom, and if you manage to find all of them, you get an awesome statue that refills all of your energy upon interaction. Besides Echoes and might crystals, there are other collectibles for you to find as well, like the Zelda typical heart pieces of course, stamps, and getting all of Dampé's automatons together, for example. There's a whole questline about that guy and his robots that function quite similarly to Echoes, and I can't help but wonder how he went from grave digging to engineering. Anyway, speaking of quests, or side quests rather, there are a lot of them in Echoes of Wisdom, and each and every one of them comes with its own rewards, ranging from simple rupees to different outfits or accessories which you can equip to get all kinds of perks and passive bonuses. Also, it would be no true Zelda experience without some minigames, so of course there's a handful of them in here too, including the famous horse races. Yeah, you can actually get your own horse in a top-down Zelda, how crazy is that? So you're free to travel by horse, or, you know, you can use the vast number of fast travel points you'll come across during your adventure. Also, I was a big fan of the Slumber Dojo in Kakariko Village, in which you can partake in a great array of challenges. After successfully beating all of them, you actually get to complete your Link cosplay with a fitting outfit too, so beautiful stuff.
That's art. I literally want that hanging on my wall. I want to get a screen and put it in my living room, and I just want this on loop.
Sadly, there's no fishing minigame, but you win some, you lose some, I guess. But hey, there's a smoothie mechanic at least. You'll find these deco scrubs in certain spots all over Hyrule, who are more than happy to mix you some delicious smoothies if you bring them the right ingredients, which are actually useful for getting some health back or providing you with additional buffs and defenses. It's similar to the cooking system in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and you can even manage to mix yourself some suspicious looking drinks. Yum! Now, as far as dungeons go, Echoes of Wisdom features some very cool designed, awesome ones for sure, and given the nature of the game, they were relatively challenging, I might say, even for an old Zelda veteran like myself. That, or maybe I'm just getting old. The Faron one was particularly interesting, but they're all very rad, I'd say. The bosses were also really good in my opinion. Figuring out how to approach each and every one of them was quite fun for me and felt like solving another puzzle in and of itself, but they were simultaneously not the most difficult thing ever, you know. Reaching them in the first place was definitely more of a challenge here. I also want to briefly highlight how non-linear Echoes of Wisdom actually is. There are a total of 7 major dungeons in the game, and while you have to do every one of them at some point, you're free to tackle them in pretty much any order you feel like at the moment. There's only one exception, I think, after which the game really begins and opens up, so to speak, but other than that, it's very much your choice, and I was a big fan of that. Now, given the fact that I already yapped about the game's performance earlier, I'll just briefly go over the general difficulty, accessibility options, length and soundtrack here before finally wrapping this thing up. So difficulty-wise, there were a few segments I personally found a bit difficult, like some puzzles and rooms I didn't quite get at first, so I actually had to use the grey matter between my ears for a change to get through them. But combat was never a hurdle at all, especially with some of the stronger echoes, and a fairly upgraded Swordfighter form. So generally speaking, Echoes of Wisdom is very fair with its difficulty, I'd say. Not too easy, not too hard, you know, just right. It ramps up a bit if you're going for a full minigame completion. Mastering that first horse race is no joke, for instance. You can activate the popular hero mode, in which you take more damage and won't find any health pickups right from the get-go if you so desire. And you can even switch between normal and hero on the fly without starting a new file. As far as accessibility options go, there are none, actually. You can only choose between those two difficulty settings, and that's pretty much it, so not much to report here, unfortunately. But on another note, as is custom with Nintendo titles, the sound design as well as the musical score are both excellent, with lots of recurring motifs you've probably heard in previous Zelda soundtracks before, like using the melody of Zelda's Lullaby for this game's overworld theme, for example. There's a lot more to uncover in the OST here, of course. I highly recommend listening to it, even if you're not interested in buying this game. So, how much meat is on the bones of Echoes of Wisdom now? I'd say you're probably looking at 20 to 30 hours of playtime if you don't care about 100%ing it. I've spent about 35 hours in total, collecting just about everything there's to collect, doing everything there is to do, I think, and I feel like it was time and money well spent. But as always, it all comes down to your personal preferences and interests, and whether you think that this could be something for you, you know. All I have left to say now is that it was very refreshing to play a classic, traditional Zelda game again that brought a lot of fresh and innovative ideas and mechanics to the table, actually shaking up the formula a bit. Although I have to say that every Zelda game managed to feel quite unique so far. In my opinion, it's not only a great Zelda game, but a great title in general. One of the best you can play on your Switch right now, I'd say. Despite being not as much of a time sink as the two true open world Zelda games that came out before, at least as far as pure game length is concerned, and, you know, having a sometimes wonky frame rate in the overworld is kinda sucky, but this version of Hyrule has a lot for you to explore and discover, with lovely characters, awesome dungeon design, unique mechanics, and a story that feels as high stakes as ever. The big bad guy in Echoes of Wisdom is a pure manifestation of dread this time around, actually evoking plans of pure nihilism, and I found the whole endgame section extremely impactful and thought-provoking. Speaking of thoughts, I will now leave you to your own again. I hope you enjoyed watching this video as much as I did making it, and I'll see you in the next one.